The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website.
Hello and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. Today we have an incredible treat for you. Lincoln's Mayor, Lirian Gaylor Baird, is going to be here to talk about many of the initiatives that are going on in Lincoln and also the issues that are facing seniors. You don't want to miss it. Stick around.
Hi everybody, my name's Kim Hachia. Welcome to Live and Learn. On my segment today, I'll be talking with Mike Farrell, who's one of the co-founders of the Platte Basin Time-Lapse Project, which is a long-term project that's looking at taking pictures and looking at the health of the Platte River and its many tributaries, and it's a really interesting project. And I think the show itself will be really interesting for you who are interested in wildlife or the river system. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Lita Powell Drake, and when our ancestors originally came to Nebraska, they had to find a place to live, and they wound up in sod houses. So I think you'll really enjoy Stephanie Grace Whitson, who is here with us today. She's the author of the book on the sod houses. Please stay tuned, you don't want to miss this one.
Welcome to Live and Learn. It's time for another session of fitness classes sponsored by Aging Partners. We have a couple of certified personal trainers with us today. Mitzi Aiden and Tracy Foreman are going to be here to talk about the importance of getting out and moving and staying fit, and they're going to give you a little demonstration as well. Don't go away.
This and more on today's Live and Learn.
Hello and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. Lincoln is a city on the move. It has lots of construction, all kinds of really fun things are going on, and a growing population, and one of those growing populations is the senior community. Here to talk about all of that with us today is Lincoln's Mayor, Lirian Gaylor Baird. Welcome. I hope I said that right.
You said that right.
I asked your staff how to say it, and they all just went, just call her the mayor. And I said, okay, good, that's nice and easy. Before we get talking about some of the specific issues, you've been in office for, I guess it's coming up close to a year now. Give us your assessment of how you think things are going.
There's never been a better time to live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we're really proud of the way this community is growing, and it's a team effort. We have lots of people here at City Hall who are really dedicated public servants. And of course, people across the community, whether they work for nonprofits or they're students who are trying to make change for the future, or our private sector, which is a fabulous partner in all of our efforts. We are a city on the rise, a city on the move, as you said, and I think that we are becoming increasingly recognized for that, whether it's the top 10 lists we're making about work-life family balance, or a great place to retire, a great place to start a business. Lincoln is really stepping up and becoming a very competitive city across the country.
You know, I've had the opportunity to at least interview or get to know lots of the mayors in the city, and one of the things that they all have said is that they couldn't do it without a great staff. You have a great staff.
I definitely do. And like I said, it's a team effort, and we really work well together. We couldn't get all of the work done in City Hall without a lot of experts. Our department directors bring a lot of subject matter expertise, whether that's making our parks wonderful places for our families to play and get exercise, whether it's our public safety personnel who increasingly have kept crime rates low and emergency response rates quick, and whether it's our librarian who makes sure that we not only have wonderful books and audiobooks for people to check out, but also a new thing called Senior Tech Cafe, where folks can come and get advice and help with any of their IT questions. We have people who are really innovative and want to make sure that all of our services are working well for our residents.
That is a great idea, because there are a lot of seniors who can use some help in that area, and I'm certainly one of them. Let's talk about the senior situation and the senior population, which really is on the rise. There was an article in the local paper just last week about how that population is going to increase, and we have, I know you have plans in the works to do a study for what's happening over the next 30 years or so to see where those changes are and where things need to happen. But the senior population is a tough one. You know, you have a group of people who retire between 65 and 70, and then it goes all the way into people in their 90s. That is a challenging task to try to find things for all of those people to stay well and stay healthy and enjoy a good life in retirement.
Yeah. It's a great challenge to have, though, because what I know to be true, and I think what we can all agree, is that when you're designing or planning to take care of seniors, you're actually making life better for everyone, no matter their ages. You know, when we design activities in parks or fitness and play centers, if we're designing them for seniors, we're making it really accessible for all. And when we try to improve our streets and make sure that they're smooth, and when we make sure that our sidewalks are smooth and that our crosswalks are safe for seniors or people who may need more assistance getting across the street, we're actually making it safer for parents and children too. So when we are actually being intentional about the work we do for seniors, we're benefiting everyone in our community. So I'm excited that our comp plan, our comprehensive plan that guides growth and development in our community, will absolutely be paying great attention to this growing senior population, how we are intentionally making sure that our city works for an aging population, and recognizing that when we do that, we really are taking care of all of Lincoln's residents.
I know one of the key areas of concern for seniors always is the health. I love to tell this story. A friend of mine who has retired and has grandchildren and daughter living in Arizona, and everybody always asks her, well, when are you going to move down to Arizona? And she said, are you crazy? Lincoln and Omaha have some of the best health facilities anywhere in the world. I'm not going anywhere. That's really a great selling point for Lincoln, isn't it?
It is a great selling point. We, have wonderful hospitals and medical facilities, and this is a place that serves the region. So, increasingly people are coming to Lincoln in order to get their care. We have really talented medical professionals, and they care about the whole person. They're there to serve not only in a crisis, but they take care of people through experiences that are really difficult, and their commitment not only to their patients but to this community is something that's quite remarkable. And unique in Lincoln is the Community Health Endowment. When Lincoln General was sold and funds were used intentionally to set up an endowment to support the overall health and welfare of our community, Lincoln showed its values. We care about making sure that we are looking after the health and welfare of all our residents, and that's a wonderful feature that we have. Not to mention, of course, our aging services and all of the wonderful work that our director, Randy Jones, and his team do to try to make sure that no one is falling through the cracks and that everyone has access to what they need, whether that's companionship, fitness activities, care through our health department or other services, or meals. So we do have a lot of folks who are trained, have their eyes trained on making sure that people are healthy late into life.
Yeah, the more I find out about Aging Partners, and I've told so many people this, it is this incredible little gem here in the city, isn't it?
It really is.
Let's talk about some things that are not necessarily senior specific, but certainly things that would have some impact on them. One of those is housing. Obviously, as the population gets a little older, it's going to be a challenge to find some places for everyone to be able to live.
Right.
Boy, there is more construction going on in the city of Lincoln, more businesses. It's expanding in lots of different areas. How do you balance all of that with the problems that causes, but also the benefits that come with it?
Yeah, well, we're a growing city, and we need to make sure that we have housing options that work for our residents. And while the housing market is largely driven, of course, by the private sector, we try to be a great partner and try to make sure that we are working with developers and home builders and others who want to make new housing projects come to life in Lincoln. So we also, through the planning department, in addition to providing services to folks who are trying to go through a permitting process, we're planning and trying to incentivize and guide development that will create more housing opportunities, whether that's more density downtown or growth at the edge. It's something that we actively seek to encourage because we know that we have to have a housing supply that can support the growth of our community. A community that is growing in large part in the senior sector in terms of age and demographic.
Yeah, and there's lots of new apartments that are being built out by Southeast Community College. I mean,
Yeah.
just everywhere downtown. It's
Yeah.
it's just sort of fun, and it's
Yeah.
a vibrant era right now.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that so many people love this city because it feels kind of like a big small town. So one of our kind of challenges is to continue to preserve that special quality of life in Lincoln as we grow.
That sort of leads me into my next question. Several years ago, when Tom Cassidy was Lincoln's police chief, I graduated from high school with Tom, so I sort of know him.
Go Rockets.
Yes, the Rockets. He said, as Lincoln moves towards 300,000 people, that is sort of this place where it sort of causes some more issues and some more problems. And as we are sort of moving there, maybe we're already there already, but if not, it's very close. One of those concerns, of course, is the safety issues as a town gets bigger. I know that's a concern for you, making sure that the community stays safe.
Yes, absolutely. Public safety is our number one priority. And you're right, as cities tend to grow and sometimes hit that 300,000 mark can be a real tipping point in terms of safety, in terms of traffic and transportation challenges, and even pressure on resources like water. So we are actively considering all those issues as we plan for our future and plan for our budgets, and I'm really pleased that we have such an excellent public safety record in this community. If you look at our statistics, violent crime is really relatively low compared to other communities our size. Crime in general has been on the decline over the past decade. We have a remarkably safe community for our size. But we always have to be vigilant and continue to make sure we have the resources in place to support our growth. And you know, public safety also has to do with public health, so we are making sure that we are continuing to make sure that all of our residents have access to important vital health programs and services through our public health department, and that we're investing in our streets and making sure that people have safe commutes, that we are taking care of people from the minute they get up to the minute they go to sleep at night.
Let's talk about those streets, because infrastructure is another area that I know it's a concern for you. I think it's a concern for lots of people as you want to make sure you have clean water, you want to have safe bridges, you want to have roads that are good, and of course we could talk about snow removal and on the streets, and then potholes. Well, I won't need to go there, but my philosophy is if you're not getting complaints about it, you're not doing your job. But let's talk about the infrastructure. That's sort of an interesting challenge all mayors face.
Yes, I mean, that's the very basic fundamental work of the city, public safety and infrastructure and protecting our quality of life. And we believe that if we are doing our job, we are freeing our residents from worries about the basics of city living so that they can pursue their dreams and focus on their futures for themselves and their families. And so we are very focused on making sure that our infrastructure is improving and growing to meet the needs of tomorrow. We are so grateful to our residents who've agreed to invest in our streets. We have an estimated $13 million annual investment over the next 6 years in streets specifically. Wow. So we've had a public committee that's helped us prioritize which streets go first and which streets will go next. And we're really excited to make those repairs and support that street network's growth and efficiency. And we're, of course, continuing to keep our eyes trained on how technology can help us. We have our Green Light Lincoln program, which is working to try and prevent log jams to make that morning commute go as efficiently and expediently as possible. So there are a lot of really talented folks who are focused on infrastructure, and I know we all learned how vulnerable infrastructure can be to severe weather impacts. Last spring, when we had historic flooding that impacted our well fields up in Ashland, and so we will be continuing to harden our infrastructure against what the future may bring. And so, you know, not only safety and security in the traditional sense, but looking at climate security and how we protect our city assets and make sure that we protect our quality of life going forward.
Let's talk a little bit about quality of life. You've mentioned it several times, and again, I have another fun little story. When I was at the university, and we hired a really fabulous copy editor who had spent some time in New York at the New York Times and some other places, and he came here and just loved it. I asked him one time, I said, so do you tell people back in New York how great it is here? And he says, no way. He says, I don't want all those people coming here. Right. I'm guessing you would probably look at it a little bit differently maybe, but quality of life has always been a great selling point for Lincoln, and I'm sure it still is.
Absolutely. I came to this town with a 4-month-old baby girl in my arms precisely for that reason. I wanted to give her the best and brightest future, and my husband and I knew that the schools were high quality. We knew that the cost of living was relatively low compared to most communities across the country, that commute times were much shorter than they are in bigger cities, and that we live in a place, that Lincoln is a place where you know your neighbor. That interaction with neighbors on a day-to-day basis, people who look out for each other, who take care of each other, is priceless. And that kind of quality of life, that small town feel within the larger city that I talked about earlier, is part of what makes Lincoln so special. It's part of what we have to try to work to preserve. And I think that in Lincoln, our neighborhood associations are a wonderful way that we continue to have a high quality of life, because great cities don't happen by accident. It's the intentional work of so many people who care about them, not just City Hall, but like I said, our private sector partners, our nonprofits, our advocates and activists, and our neighbors who pitch in and do the work, whether that's a neighborhood cleanup or getting involved on a committee that serves the city, or volunteering time or treasure to many of the nonprofits that are doing good work in our community. This is a great place to live, work, and raise a family, and that is really, I think, Lincoln's competitive edge. It's the story we need to tell across the country that will help bring people here, that will help keep our bright young people here, and that will help us continue to grow.
As always, I knew I'd run out of time, but just very quickly,
Yes.
how about the future? I mean, what are you looking at down the road?
You know, our vision, my administration's vision, is to ensure that Lincoln has a successful, secure, and shared future. So as we look to the horizon, we are very focused on making sure that we maintain our community's safety and security, that we are making sure that we are competitive as a community, because we know that we need to, convince people to stay and to come here in order to grow as a community, and that future is one where everyone can see their place in it. We want to make sure that everyone feels like they belong, that they're included, and that they're valued and supported in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Very cool. Are you having fun as mayor?
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank
So
you.
many things we didn't get a chance to talk about. I hope you'll come back and see us again sometime.
I would love to, and thanks for all the contributions you make to our community, and music being chief among them.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And thank all of you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud, and remember, it's never too late to live and learn.
Hi, I'm Randy Jones with Aging Partners. Did you know that Lincoln expects a 75% increase in the number of seniors living in our community over the next 15 years? Aging Partners is a community service that provides fitness programs to help keep older adults strong and healthy. This year, Lincoln Cares donations are providing funds for new fitness equipment. You can help make this happen. Sign up to support Lincoln Cares and add $1 to your LES bill each month.
Hi everybody, welcome to Live and Learn. My name's Kim Hachia. Everyone in Nebraska is familiar with the Platte River. We get our water from the Platte River. It's one of the nation's most important river systems. And it's been somewhat studied, somewhat not, but my guest today, Mike Farrell, is the co-founder of the Platte Basin Time-Lapse Project, which is helping to study the river, helping people understand the importance of this river, and also the geographic size of the river system. So it's an ambitious project, and I welcome Mike to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Mike, I think of you as a photographer, as an artist. You worked for many years as a documentarian, is that the right word? A documentary filmmaker at NET. So how did that background lead you to Mike Forsberg, who is not here today because he's actually doing some PBT work out in Wyoming? How did that lead you and Mike to start this project, and then maybe tell a little bit of the scope of the project?
Well, like you said, I did documentaries at NET for a long time, and back in the late 80s when Kingsley Dam was up for relicensing, there was going to be a lot of controversy over how to use the river's water. I produced a documentary called Platte River Road that looked at the history of the Platte River and some of the issues that were going to be confronting us. And I started going out and doing photography after I made that documentary up and down the Platte system, because I got to visit all the dams and reservoirs. And then I was getting ready to show that photography when my wife passed away. And that ended my documentary career because I had 2 kids at home, and so I didn't produce anything for a long time. And then once my kids were done with college and I was kind of able to do traveling again, I got together with Mike Forsberg and we produced a major documentary for PBS based on his book, Great Plains, America's Lingering Wild. And that took us about 3 years to do that. By now we're up into the early 2000s. And so when we were finishing that project, we both had this idea that it would be really cool if we could look at the entire Platte Basin and kind of lift up the geopolitical boundaries, the state lines, and look at the river as a system, and to do that with time-lapse photography. So fast forward to today, we have about 60 different camera systems that are in waterproof cases that are dotted up and down the Platte River from the headwaters all the way up in Colorado and Wyoming down to the mouth at the Missouri, although we lost our mouth camera in the flood last year and haven't been able to get back in there and put it back in place. But these cameras take a picture every hour of daylight. About half of them are cell phone enabled, so we get the pictures sent to us day by day. The others are up high country and we have to send people in to go get the image cards and bring it back to us. We turn those into time-lapse videos that then become the basis to look at the issues surrounding how we use water, where it comes from, who gets to decide, what the conflicts are. And with things like climate change and warming coming up, these are going to be issues that are going to be confronting us even more intensely than they have been up to now. And so we have a bunch of students that work with us. The university is a partner with us on this. We have private money that comes in to help us do this work. And we've been doing it for about 8 years now. And it's our intention to keep it going for at least a decade.
Right. I think we have an image of the you guys' homepage, which is PlatteBasinTimelapse.com.
Right. Just all run together, PlatteBasinTimelapse.com.
And if you actually go there and click on all those little things at the top, there's
a ton of
hundreds.
stuff in there. You can spend several days poking around
very lost in that.
Because we've been telling stories and we've been teaching students how to tell stories
Right.
about this river system and the creatures that live in it and the issues that surround it and the people who depend on the water for about 8 years now. And a lot of those kids have done some really interesting work. Many of them have gone on to professional careers doing similar kinds of things. So in some sense of the word, to me, that's one of our most important products, is providing an opportunity for students and young people to be involved with this subject matter.
Well, and it's very collaborative because there's scientists and filmmakers, and they did a project with the musicians. You've
Right.
done all sorts of.
We've
different-
helped out with the restoration of the 4th floor of Morrill Hall. We've done stuff with the Friends of Chamber Music here. We have partners. We have dozens of partners up and down the basin who allow us to site our cameras on their properties, from federal agencies like the Bureau of Reclamation down to private landowners.
Right. I think we have some photos that Mike personally has taken, but also, so let's talk about this photo.
Well, that's Lake Agnes, and our highest camera in the watershed is at that same point. I'm standing next to the camera when I made that photograph. That was taken in about this time of year, late January, early February, a number of years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I had never been there in the wintertime.
And Lake Agnes is in Colorado?
It's in Colorado. It's if you go up from Fort Collins to Cameron Pass, it's just on the other side of Cameron Pass
the Platte River sort of starts here?
Well, one
branch
of the river starts
Okay.
there. You got the Sweetwater that comes in,
Right.
and you got the South Platte that comes in. This is the North Platte. This is high up in the North Platte
Because I
drainage.
think a lot of people don't realize that the Platte River isn't just Nebraska.
Oh, it's Nebraska, Colorado, and Wyoming.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And that's part of what we're trying to show
Right.
is, how the water we get here in Lincoln, some of it originates as snow
Right,
in that photograph.
So then we have the next picture is the same location.
That's in the
But not in the
summertime.
winter.
Yeah, and I took that picture with an 8x10 view camera. So I backpacked this big clumsy box that's got a big bellows and a lens on it that's the size of your fist up to that location, and sheets of 8x10 color film, and made that picture in the summertime. I mean, Lake Agnes is just this beautiful place, and it's got this little island in the middle of it. It's what's called a cirque lake. It was formed as glaciers gouged out the mountains. So that's the Continental Divide on the ridge, and on the other side is Rocky Mountain National Park, backs up to this place. So you go up there, you're about as far away as you can get and be in the North Platte drainage and still be in the North Platte drainage.
Right. So then we have another picture coming up of a little tributary.
So this is a really gentle, delicate place that I've been to many times. That's another 8x10 photograph. It may have been made on the same trip. There's this little side creek that comes in. This is a place called Jack Creek. It's probably 10 or 15 miles away from the Lake Agnes picture. It's another tributary of the same. All these rivers and streams come down into the valley called North Park, where Walden, Colorado sits, and they mesh and form the North Platte River that then runs north, which is unusual in our nation to have a north running river, up towards Casper and then east and then down towards Lake McConaughey.
Okay, so then the next picture is part of that North Platte River.
That's a photograph I made back when I was doing the work on the documentary that I spoke about a little earlier, Platte River Road. And that's along the Oregon Trail, and it's taken from the site where there's a monument commemorating the first 2 Euro-American women that made the trek out to Oregon, Narcissa Whitman and Eliza Spaulding. So it's what's called the Narcissa Whitman Overlook. There's a historical marker there.
And it's at Bayard?
It's right near Lisco. It's just a little bit downstream from Chimney Rock.
Okay.
It's just a nice overview of the river valley, and the river is like this little ribbon that goes off to the west that people followed to make their way out to Oregon. And that's of course Lake McConaughey. And so I spent, about 8 years going upriver every summer. I took my middle son with me. I taught him how to drive up on mountain service roads up in the mountains and what have you. And we'd stop and camp at different places along the way. And so this is from the overlook at the Hilltop Inn, and where the offices are for Kingsley Dam and Lake McConaughey.
And there's a PBT time-lapse camera.
There is.
Close to.
It's almost exactly in
to
that
this
same
location.
location. They have a little communications tower, and our camera's mounted on that tower. And that camera has, if you go to our website, there's a live view. It'll show you what it's looking like today out there.
Okay.
But that was the issue that was driving my earlier interest in this, was that McConaughey was going to have to be relicensed. The Endangered Species Act had come in the early 70s. Some of the early conflict with the Endangered Species Act resulted in protections for the whooping crane and other animals in the Platte Basin, and all of that was going to be revisited in the late 80s. And so I made the documentary, and then other stuff happened, and we got to...
and that's the perfect segue for my next question, which is we're talking about species. And this program we're showing during March, which is crane season, which I think a lot of people, Nebraskans, associate the river with sandhill crane migration.
Yeah.
And Aging Partners is going to be sponsoring a trip out there, which is March 31st. And while you won't be on that trip, what would you suggest why people should sign up for this and go?
Well, if you think about what this region of the country might have looked like when Lewis and Clark or Commander Long or whoever was coming out here, Fremont, exploring back in the early part of the 19th century, and there was a sea of bison and all different kinds of animals roaming the prairie, and the skies were filled with different kinds of birds. Really about the only thing that's left that has that level of majesty is this sandhill crane migration. It's not just sandhill cranes, it's waterfowl of all kinds, but they all funnel through our flyway here that centers right there in the Big Bend of the Platte between Grand Island and Kearney. So it's one of those things where if you've never seen it, you don't know what you're missing, and if you have seen it, you'd really like to go back and see it again. I've gone to do this every year for probably 35 or 40 years. I told you that when my wife passed away, she asked that her ashes be put in the river at Roe Sanctuary, because we used to take our kids up there every summer, every spring.
It's a beautiful location.
Yeah. So what people should realize is go to the Roe Sanctuary website and read the stuff that they have to tell you about how to dress and what to expect and how to behave if you've never been there before.
Yeah.
And it's a remarkable experience, and it can be different every single morning that you go. You're going to see something different.
Right, yeah. My spouse and I have frequently gone out there 2 or 3, 4 times a year. It is really a magical place.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm really glad that Platte Basin is working on a project that will sort of help keep that place alive and
Yeah.
keep the whole river system thriving and you know, really working on that.
Well, I guess the way I think about it is the river is a living system. It's a living being, and it has, in my mind, it has the right to exist, and we all take part in it. We ask a lot of that river, and our project is an attempt to both try to understand the river and give back to the river. And so the more people we can get involved with seeing things and seeing how that river operates and what the issues are, the better off we're all going to be as a society when we have to make decisions, because it's not going to be easy going forward to decide who gets to do what. You know, there's only so much water, and not everybody's going to get all they want.
Yep. Well, thanks, Mike.
Yep.
This has really been a great conversation, and thank you and Mike Forsberg for working on Platte Basin Project. I've really appreciated my association with
Yeah.
it. And I'd like to remind our viewers that it's never too late to live and learn.
Legal services are a part of the spectrum of senior services available through our 8 area agencies on aging. Attorneys can assist and educate seniors on consumer credit and debt collection issues, as well as help them plan ahead with advance directives. Attorneys can also help seniors with consumer fraud and financial exploitation concerns, and also guide them through government benefit issues. For more information, contact the Elder Access Line at 800-527-7249.
Hello, I'm Lita Powell Drake, and welcome to a very special show today. We're going to go back in time to the special time when Nebraskans lived in sod houses. Have you ever seen a sod house? And with us today is really a specialist in this area. Her name happens to be Stephanie Grace Whitson, and she's the author. She is the author of this book, this wonderful book called Home on the Plains. You'll get a wonderful idea of the history of Nebraska here. So I want you to explain some of the things that you have been doing, like, for example, the sod house. What actually was the sod house?
Well, when the pioneers came west after President Lincoln signed into law the 1862 Homestead Act, that provided any adult who wanted to have a home with 160 acres of land, which was essentially free.
It was free, yes.
Essentially. They had to pay a filing fee, which wasn't very much. They had to live on the land for 5 years. They had to improve it. And if they could do that, then they got title to the land. And that was a marvelous dream for people who had no hope of otherwise owning anything. So people came west by the thousands to Nebraska, especially.
Let me ask you about a woman. If a woman were coming west,
If she was the head of a household, yes, she could. And there were many single women homesteaders.
Oh, excellent. All right, well, the reason that we can even talk about this is because of the photographer, the amazing photographer who happens to be Solomon Butcher. Now, was he from Nebraska?
No, Butcher was from Illinois.
Oh.
He came west as part of, let's go get some land, with his father, his brother, and his brother-in-law, and they filed on homesteads in Custer County. It was in the, wait a minute, I can figure that out. It was in, it was in 1880. I can't remember numbers very well. He was 24 years old.
Oh my goodness.
He filed on a land, he built a dugout, hated every minute of it, and tried to come up with another way to feed his family. And what he ended up doing was he came up with, about 4 years after he'd been out here, with something called his history scheme. And Butcher realized that the sod house era was going to disappear very quickly. So he decided, he put his photographic equipment on a wagon. There's a picture of the photographic wagon. He'd worked for a photographer for a little while in Illinois. So he knew how to handle a darkroom. This is his darkroom, and he drove around Custer County. His idea was, I will take photos of the settlers with their sod houses. I will write biographical sketches of those people, and I will eventually publish a book. By the late 1800s, he had taken over 1,500 photos. And he eventually had about 3,000. And those glass plate negatives now reside at our Nebraska State Archives right here in downtown Lincoln.
How did they find them?
He actually sold them.
Well, good
as,
for him.
As an elderly gentleman,
Oh,
he
yeah.
actually sold them to the state. I don't know if he realized what a wealth of information and what an incredible archive he was creating. But historians like me spend hours and hours perusing and looking through the record that he created of what that era in Nebraska and on the Great Plains was like.
Well, let's take a look at some of the pictures that he actually took of the families out here. And I look at this and, whoa, is that a big family, isn't it? And I'm looking at it carefully, and look carefully. Nobody's smiling in that picture. And why aren't they smiling?
It was just technology back then. The shutter speeds on the cameras weren't fast enough. People had to hold very still. In some of Butcher's photos, you'll see a blur that's actually a dog. Well, the dog moved while he had his aperture open, capturing that. So people were holding still, and in general, they didn't smile. Because they had to hold still.
Oh, for so long, too.
Yeah.
I'm looking carefully, and what do I see in between? Is that some sort of a machine in between the man on the far left?
It's a treadle sewing machine,
Oh.
and we don't really know why these photos often show things that were in the house and came out, whether they were showing their family, look, we're civilized people.
I
we're
thought
living.
that in the first place.
Yeah.
I thought, well, we're okay. I mean, we have a sewing machine,
Right.
and a lot of you don't.
Right, and I think that's a logical conclusion that they might have wanted to do that. But there's also some thought that Butcher was creating a record of material culture. You know, he couldn't take photographs inside the Hasadis to show people what they were
would be
like.
too dark.
Because
Yeah.
it would have been too dark. So he had people bring some things out. But of course, the sewing machine, she would have been very happy to have
Oh,
that sewing
yes.
machine.
Oh,
That
yes.
the creation of the treadle sewing machine really revolutionized women's lives.
And look at this Saudi, and look very, very carefully, because there's something interesting here. On the right-hand side, is the Bible there? Is the Bible in this picture?
Yeah.
yeah.
The father, I'm assuming it's the father.
The father that
has
would
a
be on the
giant
right-hand
Bible
side.
on his knee. Yes.
And then the child on the left-hand side, is that a bat?
There is. If you look carefully at the photo, these glass plate negatives have all been digitized. So it's possible now to see a lot more in the photos, a lot more detail, because of course a computer can see a lot more gradients of dark and light than the human eye can. And online at the Library of Congress, you can actually see all of Butcher's collection. The box to the right of the door in that picture is an Arbuckle coffee box.
Oh,
And
they had Arbuckle back then?
they had Arbuckle back then, and I have a wonderful quote, which I can't quote, but of a woman who used her Arbuckle coffee box for her kitchen cupboard. She turned it up on end, she made a little curtain, she put shelves in it, and that was her kitchen cabinet for a long time in her sod house.
I always think about the women out there. I mean, the men ruled and the women did all the work.
Right.
You know, and living in that kind of a house and having to prepare all the food.
It would have been hard.
And then wearing all of that heavy clothing, I mean,
Yes.
that women wore, you know, at that time.
I've come across-
It's tough Nebraskans, tough Nebraska
It
women
is.
around
I
here.
once had a friend who said that if it had been up to her to settle the American West, we'd all still be in Boston drinking tea. And I could really relate to that as I've learned about what these women's lives were. But you know, a lot of them had a very strong sense of being partners in the project. There were women who kept track of exactly how much money their chickens and their eggs and their butter that they took into town was worth. And women who had a great sense that they were a big part of the family success if they indeed were going to be able to prove up on that land.
Well, I think about the women who were having babies at that time.
Yeah.
And they would have to probably do it by themselves.
Well,
I
there
mean,
would have been a neighbor probably. It was a
well-
midwife that they could call for.
Oh, I hope so.
And
I think
yeah,
about that.
lots of stories, lots of tragedies. But over the years that I've been reading these women's diaries and reminiscences and letters home, it's incredible how their spirit seemed to prevail in so many cases. I admire them greatly, and that's what draws me to this, is just the idea of prevailing over really tough times.
Oh, what prompted you to actually create this book?
Well, I'm not from Nebraska. I never heard of a sod house before I moved here, and it's just always fascinated me. I was homeschooling my children, learning Nebraska history along with them.
Oh.
And what appealed to me was exactly what you just said. I have 4 children. What would that have been like, living in one of those houses?
Yeah.
Where would I have gone if one of the kids got sick and there wasn't a doctor? What would I have gone through? And I began reading Diaries and Reminiscences of Women. This was back in the 1990s, and the fascination just continues. I found that, you know, there's that saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
And humans in general struggle with the same things. Why am I here? What is going to happen? Can I have hope through this tough time? And reading about these women just has really encouraged me personally in my own life when I've gone through tough times. I've thought, well, Martha out on the Soddy, you know, this today wasn't a good day, but I didn't have to strain a single snake out of the well water before I made my morning coffee. So it gives me perspective, and I just really enjoy learning about them.
Well, tell us about the Woods family.
James and Grace Woods immigrated actually from Nova Scotia.
Oh.
And this is them in front of their Soddy. They came from Nova Scotia and built this in Dale Valley, which is out in Custer County. And that's Grace. And in the book, we have a couple of quilts that Grace made, because the book focuses on the material culture and the quilts that these women had or made. And I love her pose with the hand on the hip. And you know, they came with a typical pioneer dream. We're going to have a place of our own. We're going to get this land, and we're going to make it.
And then look what they did.
About 10 years later, Solomon Butcher went back to see how they were doing, and look how they were doing.
Oh, what a change. What remarkable people there were.
I know.
there.
This was taken in 1904, and that farmhouse is no longer standing, but the family does have the 1904 numbers, which are over the front door there. You can't see it because we're not looking at the detailed photo. The other thing about this photo is if you look carefully around the corner through the posts of the fence of the back porch, you can see the Soddy. It's still sitting there on that land. And again, Mrs. Woods has her hand on her hip. And it just strikes me that she was the kind of woman who she knew who she was, and she knew that she was doing something important, and that she'd accomplished something really great by being able to stay and by making it possible for them to have that home.
Well, if you would like to visit a sod house, there's one still left right here in Nebraska. And we'll put up on the screen exactly where it's located if you want to jot that down, because you might be interested in seeing. This is the Dow's house. And it's open to the public, and tell us about that.
It is. It's an amazing little place. It's out by Comstock, Nebraska, but if you look up on the internet, it's DOWSE. And the family maintains it. The front door is open, not locked, and it is furnished. And for those who want to really see what it was like, it's a very quiet place where you can sit and contemplate what life would have been like.
Who were the Dow's family? Who were they?
They were one of the early pioneers in Custer County, and not too far from this little house, there's a monument that tells you about them. When I was there, one of the boys who was born in that house was still living. He was quite elderly, but this has been about 20 years ago. And he and his wife met me there, and he talked about what it had been like growing up there. What a treasure. It was just incredible to be able to talk to somebody who had actually experienced that life. I asked Mr. Dowse where he'd been born, and he turned around and pointed to a bed in the bedroom and said, right there.
Oh, my goodness.
And for me, you know, in the age of hospitals and OBGYNs and all that, that was an amazing thought, to think that he had been born on that and was still in the area in our transitory lives. And so many people move away, but they were still there and appreciated that house. Nobody's living in it, of course, but they took care of it. And it's a real Nebraska treasure.
Well, where is Comstock, Nebraska? How far
Comstock
is that from
Custer
Lincoln?
County. You drive to almost to Broken Bow, so it's about a 2.5, 3 hour drive to get to that house.
Well,
out in the Sand Hills, almost.
If you have never seen, since there's only one in Nebraska, you know, maybe when the weather turns better.
Right. There are actually a few left.
Oh,
but you
I thought that
kinda-
was the only one.
No, you kind of have to know where they are, but this one is open to the public, and you don't have to ask permission to go. The others that I visited a lot, but most of them are, of course, on private property, and you have to you contact landowners and ask permission. And people in Nebraska are very proud of their sod house history,
Wow.
and rightly so.
And you should be very proud of producing this book. It's
Thank
very,
you.
very nice. Our thanks to Stephanie
you.
Grace Wilson for being with us today, and we're learning more about the sod house right here in Nebraska.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for these tricks. These calls are not from us. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you for information or money. If you receive a call like this, hang up. Never give the caller your personal information, like your Social Security number or bank account, or send money in any form, cash, gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. Report the call to our law enforcement arm, the Office of the Inspector General, at oig.ssa.gov. Share this information with your friends and family.
Hello and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renault. March is with us, and that means more cold weather, more than likely, for good old Nebraska here. And it also means it's another session of fitness classes sponsored by Aging Partners. And we want to talk about those classes, and we want to talk about the importance of getting out and moving and being fit from a health perspective. And here to talk about that are a couple of my very favorite people. Mitzi Aden and Tracy Foreman are with us, both certified personal trainers. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Before we talk about some of the specific classes, let's talk about just in general terms of the importance of getting out and moving. Doesn't matter what it is particularly, just getting out and moving.
Very important at any age, but as we get older, especially important because we tend to lose lean muscle mass and we don't do the cardiovascular stuff that we did maybe when we were working or when we were able to move a little bit quicker. And so it's very important to get your strength training, your cardiovascular work in, and things that really enhance your lean muscle mass. Very important.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And when I work with my older clients, it seems like, you know, we have more issues as we get older. So they will say, boy, getting old is not for sissies, and it's true. So if you can just try to keep yourself moving, they know that the benefits are there. It's just to try to, you know, have that inner strength to say, okay, I'm going to move today, whatever it may be. I always say you have to give out energy to get energy. You know, if you sit in the chair, you're not going to get too much going on, but your body's will just kind of rebuild itself if you keep moving. You'll get stronger if you make yourself get up and get down and moving.
Okay, so before we talk about some of the classes, one of the things that always is a concern, I know, is the names of some of the classes. And I think it's easy for people to sort of get freaked out by some of these. One of those is Tai Chi. People sort of wonder, what is this and what could it involve, and maybe they don't want to get involved. I have this is from the Mayo Clinic. If you're looking for ways to reduce stress, consider Tai Chi. Originally developed for self-defense, it has evolved into a graceful form of exercise that's now used for stress reduction and a variety of other health conditions. Here you see a definition. It's practiced as a graceful form of exercise, involves a series of movements performed in a slow, focused manner accompanied by deep breathing. It's a wonderful way to describe it. And it is a martial art, but I don't think either of you sort of teach it in that form. It is much more of a graceful sort of movement, and again, the reducement of the stress is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And we teach it as modified Tai Chi because it's really meditation in motion, basically. We are working into our lean muscle groups, and we're working into our long bone, and we're engaging our breath, but we're also getting a really good workout. So I would say it's meditation in motion with the added benefit of a great workout.
Yeah, I agree with that. I ask my clients, or the people that will come, my class participants, it's just that because they'll usually look at you with this look like, oh boy, what are we going to do? And I say, can you give yourself this time? Because you know, hopefully they're out walking or they're doing different things that they have, you know, in their lives. But it's like, can you get yourself to calm down for this 45 minutes, hour, whatever, a more mindfulness of what we're going to do, you know, and then when they get to learning it, how easy it comes with their breath, then there is a movement with each breath. So it is something different, but it's almost like you challenge them and they end up, almost all of them end up loving it.
And I think one of the interesting things about all of these classes that you teach is the balance part of it, because there are always going to be some of these things that involve a little bit of balance. And as we get a little older, that can become a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, that's true. And anyone really can do Tai Chi. We have people who do it from a chair, and we actually offer chair Tai Chi classes, but people who stand behind a chair. And you're right, balance is one of the huge issues that a lot of people that take Tai Chi come for.
Another one of the, it's becoming more popular, I think, but that is something that is called Qigong, or Qigong, as I don't know whether, there's so many different pronunciations for it. Here you see, again, it's the ancient Chinese system of postures, exercises, breathing techniques, and meditations designed to improve and enhance the body's energy centers, and I believe originally was created to increase longevity of life.
Yes, exactly. And again, like Tai Chi, with Qigong, we focus on the breath. It's really working with the movements that we do. And so I think Mitzi would agree that it is comforting, it is strengthening, it works with all of the balance systems, the visual, the inner ear, and the feet. And so we're moving side to side, forward and back, and engaging all of those important muscles.
And there's no sequence, where Tai Chi will have a sequence. So sometimes if you feel okay, let's just stop this. We went through one sequence now, and then it's nice because you can throw in a Qigong. So that's something totally different that they're going to do, that's just a little kind of a respite, and then we can go back to maybe going through the flow of Tai Chi. So Qigong is nice in a sense that it doesn't have a sequence. You can do different kinds of Qigong and bring it in there.
And you have come up with this wonderful little handout of the 30 benefits of Qigong. I'm going to try to call it that, since I saw that as the definition. So you have some pretty cool things in here that we might mention, at least just a couple of them. I mean, it lowers blood pressure. And
Yep. Of course, relieves stress, helps you sleep better. It's a mindfulness, just like Tai Chi is, you know. Qigong, Tracy and I, we really like our Qigong because we've done the Tai Chi too, and we also enjoy that, but it's just nice because you can learn different kinds of things with Qigong, and we throw it back and forth sometimes when we see each other in the fitness room. Have you tried this one, or have you done that one? So,
and Qigong focuses on, there's Qigong for the lungs, Qigong for the liver, Qigong for the kidneys. So we can work with thousands of different forms and movements that really benefit all different vital organs in the body.
And we're going to give them a little demonstration here in just a few minutes. But let's talk about some of the very specific classes that we have. And the first one is Tai Chi assisted, or chair assisted Tai Chi.
Right. That is done over at down at St. Paul Church downtown, located downtown, and that's on Tuesdays. You see that on the screen there. Judy is our instructor for that, and it is seated, so people that have limitations can come in and do that class, and the people that go to that class have a lot of fun with it.
And one of the things that I mentioned earlier is the balance. We also have Tai Chi moving for better balance, and there's a couple of different levels in this, right?
Yes, levels 1 and 2. Tai Chi Moving for Better Balance is an evidence-based program that came out of Stanford University and has been researched for many years, and we've adopted that program because we know that it benefits people at all ability levels. So we really feel that we can do it from a chair, we can do it standing, and it is a 12-week, twice a week commitment for people. So we encourage anyone who really wants to learn Tai Chi from the ground up coming to the Moving for Better Balance classes.
Okay, and we also then have the Tai Chi Continuing 24 form.
Yes.
This is one that you probably better have a little experience with, because it does, as Mitzi said earlier, you have to follow that form. You have to learn it, you have to memorize it.
Exactly. And that one, we do not have an instructional class for that one at this time, but we're looking at, in this new year, getting an instructor to come in and start teaching that again. But you're right, you do need to take the 24 form class before you can do the continuing 24.
Okay, let's talk about some of the Qigong classes, because there are several of those as well. First one is the Refresh and Recharge.
Yeah. Cotner Center in Lincoln, which is right there at Cotner and Holdridge Street. It's the Cotner Center condominiums. We have that class from 10:30 to 11:30 on Mondays, and that one again is very random. We mix it up every week, and a pretty good sized class there.
Okay, and there's one more with the Qigong, and that is the March Mini Series. Tell us a little bit about this.
The March Mini Series is going to be coming up at the Asian Community Center. It's a cultural center, and that's going to be on Fridays at noon, and that's going to be beginning next month. So people can certainly give us a call and get signed up for that if they like, or they can just drop in.
This month, right? We're in March.
We're in March. We're in March. Yes, thank you. We're in March. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. And how about Dance for Life? This is always kind of fun.
It is fun, and if you like to dance, you can. We start from a seated position and do all of our stretches and warm-ups and our breaths, and then we begin to go to a standing position, start to do some slow, low-level cardiovascular work, and then we go into full-blown dance. And so it's a lot of fun. It's all done in circle fashion. So
yeah, very cool, and they're great classes. We encourage everybody to try these. And let's give a quick shout out to the Feeling Fit Fridays, which are also going to be coming up again this summer.
Yeah, those will be starting May 29th on Fridays at the Jane Snyder Center, and in cooperation with Community Health Endowment and Parks and Recreation, we partner with them and offer a little sampling of all of our classes on Fridays. And that'll be a new time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Very cool. Okay, let's give them a little demonstration. Let's use our great magic here to take you into a new place, and we'll give you a little demonstration of some of these classes. As you saw, we rolled through all the schedule for the classes again to give you a little better opportunity to look and see when some of these classes are as we rearranged our studio, which we have done. And now we want to give you a little bit of a demonstration, just an idea of what you might get in some of the classes. So who's going to start? Tracy, are you going to start first? Okay.
Yeah.
Give us a little example here of something, and tell us a little about what it is and why it's important, what you're doing.
Well, here's an example of Qigong. One of the things we do is focus on balance. So we'll start with our feet closed, rise up on our toes, little fingers turn up slightly, turn your hands over and press into your palms and settle down with bent knees. We rise up again on our toes, look over our shoulder at one of our hands, and then turn over and come down. You can feel the balance work in this. We're inhaling as we come up, always incorporating the breath into our movements.
And this might look easy, but it is not.
No, Jerry knows.
Particular to easy. Yes, I've done this.
Jerry knows. He's done this. And then another one that I'll do very quickly is the shoulder roll. We're going to be pushing a large stone, so we're stepping forward and rotating that shoulder in and back and rocking back off of our front toe. So we're rotating in and back. and in and back. And then we do it on the other side. And Mitzi's going to show you a couple of things that she would do in her classes here.
Yeah, and Qigong has, like we said, different ways of doing different moves. And I like to do this one, it's called water. So you just kind of raise your hands up with an inhale breath here. Inhale, go as high as you like with your arms, but relax through the elbow. You're going to go to your left, and then you exhale here. Try to keep your knees bent and just sweeping your arms back. You're going to take your left hand with the palm up, and then you're going to give it an inhale. You go up and back as far as you like or as less as you like. And then you settle back down. And you're going to rise and go inhale, up. It's just called water. Turn to your right slightly, exhale. Arms sweep front. Inside hands scoops up. And exhale, back down.
Very cool. Really fun things. I encourage everybody. You guys are great instructors, so I encourage everybody to come out and to at least give it a try. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks all of you for being with us today. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud, and remember, it's never too late to live and learn.